You best stop believing in ghost stories, subscribers. You're about to see me review one.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smarts, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for a 2003 live-action Disney film, and it's the first of a new review series I'm doing for July. And this is a movie that is hitting its 20th anniversary because it came out in 2003 of July, and we are now in July 2023, so it's now like 20 years since this movie came out. And this movie is going to be for none other than 2003's Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, directed by Gore Verbinski, released in July 9, 2003. Into theaters, and also produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, and written by Telly Elliott and Terry Rossio. So what's the plot of this film? Well, this swashbuckling tale follows the quest of Captain Jack Sparrow, a savvy pirate, and Will Turner, resourceful blacksmith, as they search for Elizabeth Swan. Elizabeth, the daughter of the governor and the love of Will's life, has been kidnapped by the feared Captain Barbossa. Little do they know, but the fierce and clever Barbossa has been cursed. He along with his large crew are under an ancient curse, and doomed for eternity to neither live nor die. And that is the list of blood sacrifice from a Turner is made. Yeah, so eventually, let's get on with how this film got made in the production. Well, so during the early 1990s, screenwriters Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio began to think of a supernatural spin on the pirate genre, and Disney had Jay Walper write a script based on The Ride in 2001, which was based on a story created by executives Brigham Taylor, Michael Haynes, and Josh Harmon. And the story featured Will Turner as a prison guard originally before a blacksmith, who released Sparrow to rescue Elizabeth, and who was being held for ransom money by Captain Blackheart, at the time. And Disney was unsure whether to release the film in theaters or direct-to-video, and the studio was interested in Matthew McConaughey's Sparrow because of his resemblance to Burt Lancaster, what inspired the script's interpretation of the character. If they chose to release a direct-to-video, Christopher Walken and Cary Elwes would have been the first choices. And Stuart Beattie was even brought in to rewrite the script around March 2002, a year later, because of his knowledge of piracy. And when Dick Cook managed to convince producer Jerry Bruckheimer to join the project, he rejected the script because it was a straight pirate movie. And in March 2002, though, he bought Elliott and Rossio, who suggested making a supernatural curse as described in the opening narration of The Ride, the film's plot. Then in May 2002, Gore Verbinski, just months before his release of his new horror film The Ring, signed on to direct Pirates of the Caribbean. He was attached to the idea of using modern technology to resurrect a genre that had literally disappeared after the golden age of Hollywood, and recalled his childhood memories of The Ride, and feeling the film was an opportunity to pay tribute to the scary and funny tone of it. And when it comes to other actors considered for Jack Sparrow, Jim Carrey is even considered for the part of Jack Sparrow, but the production schedule for Curse of the Black Pearl conflicted with Bruce Almighty, released around the same year as this movie. Others considered for the role were Michael Keaton and Christopher Walken, and eventually, though, cult actor at the time, Johnny Depp, was cast as Bruckheimer felt he could give the character the edge. Although Cook had been a strong proponent of adopting Disney's rise into films, the box office failure of The Country Bears in 2002 made Michael Eisner attempt to shut down production of the film, but Verbinski told his concept artist to keep working on the picture. When Eisner came to visit, the executive was astonished by what had been created, and he decided to let the film continue going. As recalled in the book Disney War, Eisner asked why would it cost so much, and Bruckheimer replied that the competition was spending more than $50 million, and referring to franchises at the time of the 2000s like the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Matrix trilogy. Eisner concurred that with the stigma attached to theme park attractions, Eisner requested Verbinski and Bruckheimer to remove some of the more overt references to the ride in the script, like the scene where Sparrow and Turner enter the cave like a waterfall, kind of like on the ride. But after the film was officially completed and during the advertising of the movie, everyone was expecting this movie to fail because, face it guys, this was coming out around the time the pirate genre was dead. The last pirate movie, I forget the name of it, but the very last pirate movie that had been released bombed around the 90s. Pirate movies were a joke now. Nobody had faith in this film. But they all proved to be wrong. This also even was the first film to be released under Disney banner to be rated PG-13 by the MPAA. And eventually, though, once it came to the final release date of the movie, The Curse of the Black Pearl had originally had its world premiere at Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California on June 28, 2003. And out of nowhere, it defied the people predicting to be a box office bomb, and it ended up being a huge box office success because it grossed over $654 million worldwide, and it became the fourth highest grossing film in 2003. Even critics loved it too, because it got generally positive reviews from critics, was basically the most acclaim going to Depp's performance. And the film was widely cited as a film that launched Depp as a box office leading man after many years as just a cult movie star. Depp won the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a male actor in a lead role, and some Best Actor nominations at the Academy Awards, BAFTAs, and Golden Globes. And The Curse of the Black Pearl was even nominated for 4 other Academy Awards and BAFTAs. And it also launched a franchise with 2 good sequels and 2 bad sequels that we'll talk about this month. As for my reaction, well, I'm excited to talk this movie because this is easily my favorite pirate movie and my favorite live-action Disney film. Or favorite original pirate movie anyways. And this was pretty much back when Disney gave a shit, they weren't afraid to be dark and edgy. No, I did not see this movie in theaters because I was only 5 years old at the time, so you're on the time when you're kind of starting to get introduced to theaters. I did see it as soon as it hit home media though, and I've really loved it since then, back when I was around 4 or 5. When it comes to the other movies, there's a lot of people that don't like the sequels, but the sequels they seem to shit on the most are 2 and 3. And that's usually because they're either too convoluted, or they're too long, they're too serious. Me personally, I like the first 3 movies. I like the first, the second, and the third films. The second one of this franchise I think is the best one, personally, and that's going to be crazy being said by me. I think Dead Man's Chest is easily the best movie of the franchise. The third one, people seem to hate the third one the most. They think it's the worst one, but I think the third one's a good finale, and that's where it should have stopped. It's the weakest of the original 3, fine, but I still think it's damn epic. I mean, we still had the Maelstrom battle in the third one, and we still had some of the awesome stuff from the first 2 movies in the third one anyway. So, yeah, and I actually provided a good ending to the series. Fourth one, I thought was boring, and the 5th one I thought sucked bad. That's my thoughts on the whole franchise. But back to this review though. I even still remember first seeing Jack Sparrow for the first time. It may not have had the typical hero qualities that we would see in somebody like, say, William Turner, but that's what made Jack so undeniably brilliant. He wasn't somebody we had experienced before. He's witty, drunk, a sword-fighting pirate with a flair for the dramatic, and seen for the first time in possibly one of the greatest hero entrances ever made. I literally glanced my eyes at the screen to behold the one they call Jack Sparrow, or as he likes to call it, Captain Jack Sparrow. And then he stood in all his glory on a sunken dinghy that was about to sink, entering Port Royal. And the anthem soundtrack blares as he stood up on top of his wooden string sinking ship, or boat, and he floats by the pirate outlaws hung by their necks, and a sign on them that states that pirates he be warned. He stops bailing his sinking boat in time to offer a kind salute to his fellow dead pirates. And it's not long until we're swept away by an amazing story of two men desperately trying to find the loves of their life. One a pirate after a stolen ship, and the other a working hard blacksmith boy trying to find his true love. And luckily for them, both loves have been taken by the crew of the damned. Barbossa, the fearless pirate with a pet monkey. Yeah, guys, an actual pet monkey that's actually named Jack. And it's a funny scene too, because when Jack's literally escaping the Black Pearl, he tries to get the gold thing, necklace thing back, and Barbell's like, "Thank you, Jack," and Sparrow's like, "You're welcome." No, we named the monkey Jack. Yeah. And it soon becomes apparent that everyone in this story wants something, and they will screw and backstab anyone who gets in their way. In this film, there are no such thing. There's like no such thing as true friends, and everyone will become an enemy in time. It's kind of an interesting take, and that's kind of how the story goes here. And directed by Gore Verbinski, who at the time directed some minor films like Mouse Hunt, which I liked Mouse Hunt. I thought Mouse Hunt was pretty good. I haven't seen it in a while though, but I enjoyed Mouse Hunt. I think it's pretty funny. And probably one of Nathan Lane's best roles, and probably one of the funniest films of the 90s. People don't seem to remember it that much, but I really think it's damn underrated. And then he also directed the horror film The Ring, which was definitely a pretty good horror film around the 2000s. It's not really like masterpiece worthy. It's not one of the scariest films ever made, like some people really overhype it to be. But it's definitely a pretty good horror film, and one of the few J-horror remakes that isn't bastardized and isn't a piece of crap or a piece of shit died horror film. Definitely not the shitty sequel though, but anyway, this is the movie. But back to this movie though. This movie actually tells the story of Jack Sparrow, the Captain Jack Sparrow. He was the egotistical, unpredictable pirate who was attempting to catch the Black Pearl, a pirate ship with black sails that's crewed by the damned and captained by a man so evil that hell still spat him back out. And because Barbossa was technically his first mate that decided to stage a betrayal against Jack Sparrow, so the Pearl crew marooned him on an island with a pistol and 1 bullet. He escaped with sea turtles and hair from his own back on a raft here, and he saved that pistol to get revenge on Barbossa. And after saving the governor's daughter Elizabeth from drowning, Sparrow is quickly arrested as a pirate and taken to jail where he awaits the gallows. And in search of lost Cortez gold, the Black Pearl and motley crew of pirates and the whole Black Pearl crew raid the town and kidnap Elizabeth, believing her to be a Turner. The blacksmith will turn in love with Elizabeth, freeing Sparrow from jail in return for his help in tracking down the Black Pearl and saving Elizabeth. And Pirates of the Caribbean at that time became much more than just a ride at Disneyland or Disney World. Gore Verbinski had transformed this children's ride into a summer blockbuster that was a huge hit around 2003. From the eccentric character of Captain Sparrow to the sword fights and of course the romance, this movie had something for every moviegoer. Verbinski created a classic that incorporates adventure, fantasy, and romance into a film that will keep you entertained from beginning to end. And this tale of adventure centers around the bizarre character of Jack Sparrow, whose crew years before the plot begins, we all know they plan a mutiny against him, left on an island to die, but he escaped and survived, and the crew of the Black Pearl later became cursed because they touched Aztec gold, got greedy, and the only way to lift the curse lies in the hands of Elizabeth Swann, played by Keira Knightley, the daughter of a governor. And when the crew captures Elizabeth, her old friend Will Turner teams up with Captain to save her, and the story ensures in a full energy and ongoing sense of adventure that will keep you captivated through all 143 minutes. Remember that, guys, I'll worry about later. The key performance in the movie definitely belongs to Johnny Depp the most. He brings this crazy pirate character of Captain Jack Sparrow to life. From Depp's mannerisms to his wild antics, his offbeat humor shows off his likability and diversity as an actor. Captain Jack is impossible to predict and will keep you guessing what he'll do next. This character brings a fun sense of unpredictability and comic relief to this film, making Jack Sparrow nearly impossible to dislike. And this was even the performance from, at the time, an actor that was not really that famous, and he was more of a cult movie star. He did have some acclaimed movies like Edward Scissorhands, he had Sleepy Hollow, he had Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. As examples, they weren't really major blockbusters, but they've aged well as cult classics. This movie was actually the first movie of his to make a really huge profit and launch him as a successful blockbuster star. And Johnny Depp's still been one of the best actors of all time. And And I really don't, and he definitely did not deserve to be screwed over by the woman we do not name at all. Oh, and I'm glad he's thankfully won the trial and this hopefully could get back to making more movies soon. Because he's one of those actors that deserves to have more roles. Easily. And he's gone on to do many other box office hits. The Charlie and Chocolate Factory remake, then went and did Sweeney Todd. Else he did. Then he did Rango, which I also liked, which is also by the same director as this movie. As well, and he also, and yeah, quite a few other films he's been in. And Depp's own quirkiness brings Captain Jack Sparrow to life, culminating his tradition of portraying rather unusual roles, and Bloom and Knightley play the roles wonderfully, while Rush, so versatile in his character portrayal, presents himself an enjoyable bad guy to watch. Crystal Black Girl is filmed on location at St. Vincent and the Grenadines, providing a spectacular backdrop of crystal clear blue waters and picturesque islands. As special effects are created by industrial light and magic even, and as usual, they blend to the live action seamlessly. And they merge all this together with the wonderful music scored by Hans Zimmer, and you have a really enjoyable experience. And the first half of the movie mainly features on Captain Jack, Will, and Elizabeth. The relationship between Will and Elizabeth comes first a factor of the romance in the movie, and Captain Sparrow and Will turn together to process and crew different intentions. And Jack wants to get back to Pearl, which he is once the captain of, where Barbosa's first mate sent him for mutiny, and the trio fights Barbosa and kills him, and a crew prevails over the crew of the Black Pearl, including Barbosa. The characters are even filled with fun and enthusiasm. Mention not the intelligence of Mr. Sparrow, because he's intelligent equally, no words found to describe him, and Johnny Depp at his best easily. He's twice marooned on an island where he spends his time drinking rum, especially, we see this whole stash of rum, him and Elizabeth get marooned on an island together, and they find this whole rum, and of course this gives Elizabeth an idea with the rum, so her and Jack Sparrow pretty much get drunk, sing the Pirate's Life song around the whole fire, all the way until Sparrow passes out drunk, and then Elizabeth burns all the rum to like the signal for the governor to find them, the Port Royal to find them, which is definitely a pretty genius moment right there of Elizabeth, and also pretty another funny moments because Jack's literally freaking out over the rum. It's like they burned all the rum. Yes, the rum's gone because it turned some of the greatest men into complete scoundrels. But why is the rum gone? There's also Jack and Will have some great little on and off frenemy chemistry they have together. Usually, like, sometimes they'll betray one another, or sometimes they'll help one another, and I think it's a perfect friendship throughout these first three movies. Here. And the second half of this movie is breathtaking and nail-biting, and the last fight between Jack and Barbosa is definitely the best fight in the movie. The music is another big factor in the movie. Hans Zimmer's score is really perfect, and you have the epic theme song that plays throughout this whole series. Whenever Jack makes an entrance, na na da 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 da. And also, Yo-Ho, Pirate's Life for me was literally sung by lots of people after this film, and is even sung on the Disneyland ride. Because I went to Disneyland 2 years after this movie released, and I could hear the song playing because I went on this ride quite a few times. And I think I even dined at the restaurant that's near the ride one night too. Yeah, because there is a restaurant right near the ride, guys. Very well, because I don't remember much about the restaurant, but I know there is a ride there. And there are some prop fireflies that fly around the ride and near the restaurant deck. We definitely sat near the ride when we went to Disneyland. When we went to that restaurant, we sat right near where the ride was. We rode the ride lots of times. I remember the ride very well. The visual effects of the movie is even equally beautiful as the score, and the catchy dialogues at the right moment are even remembered. And definitely one of the best aspects of the movie is the plot. It's not simple as you might expect from a Disney movie about pirates. It's really original with the correct amount of adventure, romance, action, and fun. We all know a lot of people were not excited for this movie when it was being advertised. But then, of course, the movie came out, everyone loved it, it made money at the box office, spawned a franchise. I didn't really see this movie till it hit home media, and I was blown away. And at this point, and by then, when all the second and third one came out, I went to watch 2 and 3 in theaters, and I liked the first 3 a lot. The other two, no. And it has some kind of magic too. I was definitely, like, really caught my attention. I watched this for the first time, and it really made me feel something. That's the reason why this one's the second best of the series. It has many positive sides like the outfits, and of course the breathtaking scenarios, the dialogue, and the actors. Every other actor besides Depp was great, and Bloom was convincing as this blacksmith turned reluctant pirate. Keira Knightley is also very great as Elizabeth, and the rest of the cast was also great also. And special mention goes to both Rush and Depp, who were extremely good in their roles as Barbossa and Sparrow respectively. And even if Rush plays the bad guy, Barbossa is actually likable as a character regardless, because he's both funny and evil, and has a strong presence on screen. In fact, Jack Sparrow is my favorite protagonist of this series. Barbossa is actually my favorite anti-hero of this series. Yeah, he's evil, but you also kind of root for him to get his curse lifted as well. And what I really did also like about the second and third films is because they brought him back and they redeemed his character. They made him more of an anti-hero than a villain here. That's why I like 2 and 3. They kind of really improved his character. And Barbossa, though, isn't really that menacing a villain. He's charismatic and charming and sometimes wicked even, but he's no Joker, he's no Darth Vader, no Hannibal Lecter. The scenes where Barbossa and his crew turn to undead pirates are a great example of the special effects in this movie. He's not really a menacing villain per se, and he doesn't have much of an evil plan. Mostly his plan is just to get his curse lifted. And so he can actually feel things again, can actually drink again, actually eat again, taste things again. The movie's just meant to be fun. It doesn't have a complex plot. It's very simple plot even, but it's just meant to be good old brainless summer fun. These special effects are unbelievable. And it's great to see some pirates become skeletons and suddenly change their human shape. And LM did an awesome job in this movie. And the music is also a key thing in this movie. It's just perfect. And it suits every single scene of this movie. And the reveal of the crew being cursed has never been so perfect with all the effects. Because in this whole scene, they pretty much reveal themselves, they scare Elizabeth, usually even chase her around the ship even. And then Barbossa tells her that she should start believing ghost stories, and proceeds to drink some rum in skeleton form right in front of her, and it's a very epic reveal of their skeleton forms having horror elements added to it. The script is sharp and often hysterically funny. The special effects are stunning, like I've said, the cinematography, which makes beautiful sense of the widescreen, the music scores appropriately rousing, Gore Verbinski directs the whole thing with a tremendously old-fashioned sense of fun, and it makes the film rank up with classic other Hollywood swashbucklers. And speaking of that, despite being 143 minutes long, the movie itself is surprisingly well paced. There's no slow spots in the movie. There's nothing you'd start thinking about sneaking. And there's nothing really that would really make you all that bored at all, because this movie is really well paced. And another best scene of this movie is when they steal one of the ships to pursue Elizabeth and the Pearl, and then we get that iconic photo of Jack looking at the camera that just about everybody remembers, and it's one of the first images that pops up whenever anybody looks up this movie. That's the first shot that's bound to pop up when you ever see Curse of the Black Pearl streaming anywhere. That shot's become so iconic. And the final duel between Jack and Barbossa is also the other best scene in the movie too. Because in this part, Jack tells Norrington after him and Elizabeth are taken off the island, he will lure the pirates out to be ambushed by the crew of the Dauntless, but instead he persuades Barbossa's crew to attack the Dauntless before they lift the curse and lose their immortality. Elizabeth escapes the Dauntless and frees Jack's crew from the brig of the Pearl. They refuse to rescue Jack and Will, though, because Jack owes them a ship, so this forces Elizabeth to set on her own, and Jack again switches sides, freeing Will and dueling Barbossa, while Elizabeth and Will fight off Barbossa's crewmen. And when Barbossa stabs Jack, it's revealed that Jack took a piece of the gold from the chest, and he became cursed and unable to die, much like the whole Black Pearl crew. So Jack shoots Barbossa, and Will returns both coins to the chest with his and Jack's blood on them. And it's an iconic death scene too, because when he shoots Barbossa, he's like, 10 years you carry that pistol and now you waste your shot. He didn't waste it! I feel cold. And just drops that apple into the water. And the rest of Barbossa's crew no longer immoral are arrested. Oh, and before I forget, when I'm speaking of the whole Black Pearl crew, let's not forget Raggedy and Pintle. Two iconic comic reliefs of this series. Their scenes are just funny. Their little banters together are funny. Their often little antics are funny. Two where Raggedy's literally the one trying to tell a story with Pintle, and Pintle just shuts him up like, I'm telling a story, or their constant creep pervertedness towards Elizabeth. Hello, Poppet. Or when they're telling her to put on the dress, you'll be dining with the captain, and he wants to wear this. But Elizabeth refuses to wear it, and then they're like, they persuade her to by saying that you'll be dining with the crew, and you'll be naked. And that makes Elizabeth furious, so she takes the dress. Because she's like, that's not fun. I'm not falling for that crap, you guys. Because their little stupidity does not freak her out. At all. She just looks so annoyed with them when they tell her that. And they're just cool to watch. And another thing about this movie is one of Jack's new crew members is literally, ironically, played by Anna Marie, who I did not realize was played by Zoe Saldana in one of her first roles. And it was pretty interesting because I never realized this until around 2018. It's like, wait, that was actually Zoe the whole time? Huh, I didn't know that. The reason her character didn't come back for the other movies, though, is because apparently Zoe actually really hated doing this role and found the experience to be miserable. She almost ended up quitting acting because of this movie. But thankfully that did not happen. And then, of course, the rest of the movie ends is also great because the poor Will, we all know Jack's about to be hanged for piracy, but Elizabeth diverts Norrington's attention while Will attempts a rescue. But Jack and Will end up getting surrounded, and Elizabeth intercedes and declares her love for Will. And so Governor Swan pardons Will, and he gives his blessing for Elizabeth to marry Will. So Jack dies in the sea, and he escapes like, remember this is the day where you almost caught Captain, and just falls into the water. Idiot, he has nowhere to go back to but the noose. But of course, Jack sees his ship, escapes to board the nearby Pearl, and reclaims the ship and his new crew. And Norrington permits Jack and the Pearl's one-day head start before initiating pursuit, so it shows Norrington's actually come to actually respect Jack, likely allowing him a head day start for helping him catch the cursed crew, so he decides to let him escape for one day and then decides to pursue him. So it shows he's kind of gained a mutual respect for Jack, finally, and no longer views him as an idiot. Right here. And then, of course, some people can say they prefer this is how the story ends, but I disagree. Because, well, yeah, Governor Swan pardoned Will Turner for saving Jack, even though Will Turner basically saved a criminal known as Jack Sparrow, but just because Governor Swan pardoned Will Turner, that doesn't mean Will is going to be let off the hook. There were still going to be consequences from other ports waiting for him and Elizabeth realistically in store. And Will seemed kind of aware there'd be consequences waiting for him. And there was clearly more about the Black Pearl, more about Jack that needed to be learned. Hence kind of why we needed 2 other sequels to clarify all those answers. Plus Will Turner does mention one of the villains that comes next after this movie in this film. And plus I kind of feel like we needed to learn more about Will's father. Hence why we had the other 2 sequels to find out what became of Will's dad. Since it was mentioned that Will's dad was a member of the Black Pearl crew. Here, so people could say, this movie did not need any sequels. The 2 and 3rd ones are shit because they're long. 2 and 3 had a reason to be made. Sorry guys, but it's true. Now, however, this movie does have some nitpicks. My biggest complaint would be with some of Gore Verbinski's direction and some sword fight scenes. I think he and his cinematographer did try to mask the mediocre choreography by quick cutting weird angles that obscure the action. Verbinsky did a pretty good job on the ship battle scenes. And one of the negative aspects I found were some funny lines that fell out of place and a little forced. On the other hand, yeah, there were also some mistakes in the plot, but they weren't big, thankfully, and they don't ruin the plot at all. That's kind of about it I can think of for the nitpicks. Because I don't think there's much else to talk about with Curse of the Black Pearl. And even 20 years later today, it will always be a masterpiece that is always going to be worth the watch every time. In the end, Curse of the Black Pearl is easily a must-watch and buy for any fans of pirate films and want to see the movie that launched Depp into the spotlight, especially now that he's won the Amber Turd case and is back in Hollywood. And hopefully he can do more roles, but hopefully he doesn't come back to this series because Disney basically also screwed him over. But anyway, it's it for my review of Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl. You've already kind of going to rank Curse of the Black Pearl. Here's how I'm going to rank this movie.
So overall, if you want the perfect pirate movie and also want to see one of Depp's most iconic roles, then I would highly recommend watching and buying this movie for your collection for sure. And if you're wondering how to rank Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl, I'm going to give Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl a 9 out of 10.
There we go. That wraps up my review for Curse of the Black Pearl. So, yeah, this begins the Pirates of the Caribbean review series. So, can't wait to rewatch what is easily, to me, the best film of the franchise next. That's going to be fun to do. And it's going to drive some people crazy that I think that I like one of the sequels better, but sorry guys, I just do. And this was the film that really made me a huge Pirates fan at the time. Until then guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to Don G. Corleone.